Thank you. Can you all hear me? I'm gonna, and just do that to me if I start to get lazy and my voice goes down. But I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so happy that you all are doing what you're doing. When Colette invited me to come and join you tonight, she said pretty much I could talk about whatever I wanted to talk about, but that the real interest you had in me coming was just anything you could glean from me about how to be more effective when you're working with the elected. So, and Nicole mentioned, you know, goodness, I married a rancher and lived way out on Cresa Plains, and then eventually owned a preschool in Atascadero for 17 years. I never dreamed I'd be involved in politics. It was like my second career, but I went to work as a ledge aide at the county for Supervisor Mike Ryan. Later I went to work for Sam Blakesley when he was our assemblyman and later our senator, and then got elected in my own right. So that little bit of experience along the way has helped me figure, or maybe have see through a lot of the monkey business. So, but you guys are impressive, and I have to say, you know, Nicole is talking about being at the Board of Supervisors. This organization, and it's fairly newly formed, but you're very good at your presentations. I mean, I still have notes and carried them around and used them as talking points in other places, things that I learned from you when you came to the board meeting. Your website is just great. As a matter of fact, there was a quote on the website that I wanted to just read back to you, because I don't know if how often you remind yourself what the website is, but you have a Margaret Mead quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." And that's really true. So in my experience, I've seen that happen over and over again. And usually it's fueled by just passion, and it's citizens groups. Most citizens are busy, right? We're all busy with something or another, whether, you know, no matter what your demographics is, you have grandkids, or you're enjoying your retirement, or families are busy just raising their kids or going to work or building their life, on and on. So sometimes it's hard to get people to pay attention to some very important issues and policy issues that come up in whether it's local, state, or federal government. And things that no one's even watching often change our lives forever. And for you all to pick up on this is great. So what I wanted to share a little bit about being effective, but I don't think I have to tell you guys. Nicole, I was really happy when you already know what to do. You went and you looked, you were being the detective that you need to be. It's about that. It's about all the little things. You went and saw, oh, Cal Poly is getting involved. What's going on here? You looked up the speakers. You tracked it to industry, et cetera, et cetera. And that happens over and over again. Sadly, very often you are paying for your own demise. I mean, given the fact that you think this is a bad thing, well, you're paying for it on both sides. I won't go into this really, but I'll tell you one of my big issues while serving the North County in this county was the groundwater basin. It's not your issue, and I won't, take long, but I know we're all in this room, I think we're just interested in being good stewards of the land environmentally, all of us. I read a lot of your board members' backgrounds, and the common theme was we love the outdoors, we appreciate nature, etc. So up in the north, and it affects us all because it is the water, that the groundwater in the North County really is important to the whole county. But when you overpump groundwater and subside the ground, that's about the most, I think, irreversible environmental damage that could ever happen when you're subsiding the ground, caving in because you've overpumped the groundwater. Let alone the fact that humans need that water, and it's a shared common resource. But when I got involved, I get elected. I wanted to have a voice for agriculture on the board of supervisors. And then what do I hit against first thing when I get there is corporate ag coming in, trying to just snowball our county and take control of our natural resource. The people that are involved, and they're similar to what you are dealing with here, have already proven that they're not always considerate of the environmental damage. So it just shows you think
You have to be open-minded if you're really going to represent your constituency. And sadly, I'm just sharing this all through all the levels of politics I've ever been around. Sometimes people just get caught up in the bureaucracy of what's going on. And so you say, well, why is that? You know, all these people, we voted for them because they said they were going to do this or they acted like they cared. I don't think they don't care necessarily, but think about it this way. All of us are just people, and that's what our government's designed to do, have representatives from the people coming in and helping make decisions. But life's pretty complex now. I'm not an energy expert. I'm not a water expert. I'm not, you know, I can come as a citizen of this county. I mean, I can share my experience, but what happens to people is some of these complex issues, you're being asked to vote on something, and Jeff's here, and any of you that have been, Andrea, you've been, and I don't know if Carla left or she's still here, but there's Carla. You have your hat on. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you're not an expert and you're being asked to vote on something complex, very often your staff is giving you the staff report, and that's all the real information that you have to base your vote on. I've had experience. I don't know if every elected in this room has had the same experience, but the county sometimes is very biased. And what you saw in that little film clip is the same thing. Our taxes are paying for this public university, and yet industry has captured them. I was thinking of my water situation because the water pirates have also been huge donors to the Cal Poly campus. And so the whole thing has gone that direction. And here's a little silly county supervisors going, excuse me, we don't, and so it's an uphill battle sometimes, but keep going. I really, truly believe you guys are on the right side of things. What I wanted to share with you, and then you glean from what I say, but I want to share with you when the light bulb came on for me that this wind energy was, I thought, no, I don't know about this. So I live in the eastern part of the county in Pozo, but I'm married into a family that had settled in the North County in 1913. And when I married my husband in 1975, we went out and lived on the Carissa Plains for several years. He was, in the cattle business on a generational ranch where his parents were alive, his grandparents were alive, and we pretty much made our living where he farmed himself out on other big cattle operations, which in the 70s and 80s, that was Carissa Plains. And so we were living out there. And I love the Carissa Plains and probably rode horseback over most of what's now the National Monument. Well, all of a sudden, 15 years after we were there, it was during the Clinton presidency, that administration, but all of a sudden, the Carissa Plains becomes a thing, right? It gets a lot of attention. It was pretty much no man's land before that when we were there, but people came along and said, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. It's so special. We need to save it. Well, I'm not opposed to saving the Carissa Plains, but save it from what exactly, And what I could tell right off that the folks that were coming in to save it, I mean, nobody was out there really, but they didn't realize that it had established its own ecosystem. In 100 years that it had been settled, sparsely settled, but settled, there had been grain farming and there had been grazing, cattle grazing, and that was pretty much the Carissa Plains. So the ecosystem that had been established was solidly there. I think about this, Jeremiah, because the fishing we talked over the years is kind of the same way. It's just on the land or on the sea, right? But okay, we've got to save this and protect it. So all the grazing, you guys need to leave. All the farming, you guys need to leave. What they said they were saving in all their studies were snub-nosed leopard lizards and kangaroo rats, little critters, and then the sandhill cranes. But as soon as they drastically changed the activity, they changed the ecosystem completely. With no grazing, tumbleweeds grew and other kind of noxious weeds. With no grain farming, the sandhill cranes changed their migration pattern. And within 20 years, it was a completely different scene. for the better. I mean, I'm not even the judge of that, right? But I'm just saying the things that came about in the studies doesn't matter because those creatures aren't really living there anymore, and it changed things. Anyway, where I'm going with this story is it wasn't long after I'd sat through meeting after meeting about how important it was to save this special place that all of a sudden now it's going to be covered up with solar panels. So again, I wasn't elected yet either to the Board of Supervisors. It was before I was elected. But I thought, okay, well, I'm not an energy expert either. And I think like all of us in this room, we want clean energy. We want to do the best we can, right? I do believe, and we might all have different opinions, but our society, the humans need some form of energy now to survive and have the food, and the places we've chosen to live aren't always hospitable to humans. So we need to, we have a lot of artificial needs now that we need to power up. So I didn't know, okay, if solar panels are the best deal, but I watched it, and I thought, man, I'm sorry this is happening, because I saw the Crisa get covered up with, at the time, and this was the early 2000s, at the time it was the largest solar farm in the world. That only lasted about 10 minutes because so many solar farms, kind of like the wind energy stuff, were being developed at that time. But at the moment we were building in San Luis, it was the largest project in the world. And so here I watched the whole place get covered up with solar panels that fried the birds that flew over, killed all the grass or any vegetation under it, and so forth and so on. I mean, there's good and bad to everything. So in my mind, I was thinking, that's too bad. But I did understand we needed the energy, and I guess I didn't think so much about it. I mean, it was what it was, and but I was sad, but privately sad, I guess. So then fast forward, I get elected to the Board of Supervisors, and not at the beginning. The beginning I was fighting about the water, but here comes this whole wind energy thing. And there were so many similarities that the light bulb came on. I will tell you that the construction companies that came in to build the solar farms in Crisa Plains, they were just that. They were construction companies. And as soon as they were built, the projects were sold off to investors. Warren Buffett, still to this day, I believe, owns one of those. So all that being said, I didn't connect the dots until the wind stuff came along. So in my mind as an elected, here's what I was thinking. I'm putting all this together. And we all come from our own life's experience, right? I hadn't been ever really involved in, although I'm old enough to be, but I mean, I sort of sat back and watched at Diablo, and I'm sure all of you had different opinions about that, but it was built. I mean, in the end, it was built. And again, I mean, we depend on electricity. My husband's family, we still farm and ranch for a living, and the energy, some source of energy is very important to us. So Diablo was built. And I think that the major concern and complaint back in the day when it was being built, and it was expensive to build because there was a lot of opposition to it, right? And mostly what I heard was people were concerned about the nuclear waste. That's definitely a legitimate concern, and unknown too. Anyway, Diablo now has been there all those years with a good safety record. It's, knock on wood, everything's gone along. So the way I think about it today, I think, okay, we can argue about whether that's good or bad to have a nuclear plant, but I always, working for Sam Blakeslee, taught me to whiteboard the pros and the cons of everything. So I say that the cons are just that, I mean, nuclear waste can be very dangerous, and we don't know. But the upside of that is it's a dependable source of energy. But in my mind, I thought, but it's already built. And then I got to thinking about my constituency. We all paid for that to be built through our rates, and will continue to pay for it. So I was thinking, now we're going to have to pay a lot of money to decommission that. And is the main concern going to go away, the nuclear waste? No, that's still going to be there. The thing that most people were concerned about is staying. So all it will do is, shut down that source of viable energy for people in California to use. And the other thing about that is, well, we all paid for it. We're going to pay to decommission. Very expensive. We were seeing the figures and the numbers on that. Very expensive. And then we're going to pay for all this new source of the wind. The wind projects seem to me like they're even more expensive than what the solar farms were. But so I thought, man, I don't know about that. If I'm just thinking strictly about my constituents, why are you making us take something down that's still, I mean, it was sold to us to have a shelf life to go potentially into 2080. Why are we shutting that down early to go to something else? If the something else was an improvement, I'd probably be thinking, oh, good, now we don't have to worry about the downside of the nuclear plant. But I don't know, and that's why I think you're all here. We see the potential for problems. And the correlation, when I'm trying to connect these dots, again, on the Board of Supervisors, there were, two, Jeremiah, 2 attempts to have a marine sanctuary while I served? Or three? Three.
And the fourth one.
Okay. I remember sitting with you at different meetings over that sort of thing, that the attempts to have a marine sanctuary, because kind of the same thing as what we heard on Crescent Plains. The fishermen aren't we got to protect it from any damage they might cause, which in my case on the land, it was the farming and ranching. And the fishermen were saying, are you kidding me? We're so overregulated. It's almost impossible to do anything detrimental environmentally. And we're just and we're a food source, et cetera, et cetera. So you guys know, you're from Morro Bay, you know all the drill. I voted no on the board kept that from happening. And all of a sudden, it was so special. It had to be a sanctuary and you had to be further regulated, but now it doesn't matter. And we're going to put those wind turbines in the ocean and we're going to do all that. So see the similarities. I mean, one day the light bulb came, this is just like the ocean version of what happened on Crescent Plains. And so that continues to go through my mind. But you're already onto the fact that your tax dollars are being spent and working against you. Very often your electeds at whatever level you're trying to lobby are getting all their information from staff and they're going to be resistant. Often they're going to be resistant to what you all have to say. I think that I looked at your website, you're already very, very organized and you're already prepared to have people join you and understand. And so then it's just about making sure that the citizens understand you're telling them the truth or making them think, ask them questions. How do you think this is better? And then they go, I don't know, but they're telling me it's clean and green and so forth and so on. It's just like we've been through so much in the last 10 years. A lot of the things that have happened to us on health, on all kinds of things, we've been trusting, and then we haven't asked the questions necessarily. So how is this better, and is it really worth, good or bad, are we going to shut that down over at Diablo and then go to this next thing and take a chance on what's going to happen to environmentally and every other way, and whether we're even going to have the energy? My red flags came up in my mind when the state of California insisted that hydro couldn't be on the clean list for energy production, and neither could nuclear. I mean, they could maybe say things about those two forms of energy, but not clean wasn't really, one of them. So point being, I didn't feel like the staff reports I was getting were always truthful. So I just, when something is when you're looking at things going, I don't know, trust your judgment, because oftentimes the incentive for these things. So I shared with you what happened at Crescent Plains. I shared with you that just one day I'm thinking, this is the same thing. It's an ocean version of the same thing. And I do believe very often these are investment opportunities. That's all it is investment opportunities. And these companies will come in and pay money and schmooze everybody and show you colorful brochures until they've got everybody convinced, and away it goes. If they weren't changing it up and moving on to other things, they wouldn't have those opportunities for investment. And at least with government regulated things, whatever that may be, in this case energy, they have a forced customer base, so it's almost a sure thing, that investment, and it works. So I just wanted to share with you. I wanted to make sure I'd covered everything. I wanted to be sure I thanked you for your presentations that you brought to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, so how you really get them to pay attention to you. I think that's what I'm here for, right? I think you have to be just mighty and scary, because otherwise it's easier to just go roll mighty and scary, meaning scary. You have to scare them, right? You're the constituents. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I always said why I got in politics. I don't know, because I'm not a controversial person by choice, but if you don't, it's an arena where it's what's in it for me, and which side of this fence is going to promote me, and whatever I'm after. And many people are after just retaining or going up the ladder in politics just means going to bigger and bigger offices, right? And I think in the case of our Board of Supervisors, at least I know with Supervisor Gibson for sure, he's tight like tigers with our governor, who's just loving the wind energy stuff. Why is he loving the wind energy so much? Probably, I'm guessing he has some kind of, his friends are involved, or there's some reason, right? So the only thing that, well, even if you, as an elected, I can speak for myself, because I lost a lot of friends over the past Robles groundwater basin, a lot of lifelong friends. So you either decide, you know what, I've thought about this so much, and I feel like this is the right path, and I'm sticking with it. And then, I mean, you be friendly, but people get really, really, really mad at you. You might not have them for friends anymore. But if you believe it's the right thing to do and you stick with it, then that's that. But again, I think that the more the petitions that you set, or the letters that you sign, or when you can show big numbers, or there's might behind you, then you're giving your electeds the decision to make. Do I really want to make this many people mad that vote for me? I mean, that's the way the system's designed to work, right? You can go take the positions that'll benefit you in Sacramento or in Washington, D.C., but your constituents are supposed to hold that over you. You don't have a job if we don't vote for you. So when you're thinking about that, it's the catching with the honey, or catching with the vinegar. I don't know. You can be like that, like, we really wish and we love you, and could you please listen to us? This is important to us. Or you could just say, you know what? This is really important to us. We have all these facts and figures. We think that several things in your staff report are wrong. And you know what? We're the ones that vote you into this job. So at your own peril, work against us. And I think at least you're going to get them to think about it. At least they're going to be thinking, because that's a scary thing for electeds to hear from their own constituents, their own voters, that you're mad at them. At least they'll think. Whether you're convincing enough to get them to turn away from their buddies, or their basically their structure that they're working with, and their meaning their party or their whatever, I don't know that, but be serious. And if necessary, I mean, the first time I ran for office, I lost. I was happily working for Sam, and I got a bee in my bonnet and about some of the issues that were going on in the county. And I ran knowing I was probably going to lose, but wanting to get the message out, or have some education, have some debate on what the issues of the day were. If I hadn't run, then that person would have been just rubber stamped back into office. So anyway, I'm just saying that if you get a candidate to even to bring your message, and that person, someone's willing to just go and bring the message to the debate at the next election, that those are the kinds of things that get people's attention, and they will not want that. Or they'll maybe think twice before they make you mad after that. Yeah. So I'm going to open it up for questions. I just did want to touch on the congressional hearing. Oh, and then Mandy, I'll say one more thing, and then we have questions. Yeah. So the other thing I want to share with you is, when this whole wind energy thing first came up, and it was before that light bulb where I correlated it with what had happened at Cresa Plains. But I was thinking, again, just like I did back then, well, okay, I'm not against modernization, and if we need the energy, and this is clean energy, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have I didn't really have any thoughts about wind energy, and it was really being sold to us like the companies almost immediately when I was elected in 2013. Energy companies were coming in to visit with the supervisors and bringing us the beautiful brochures about how great this was going to be. So it was still in its infancy. I was absorbing all that, but not really thinking about it otherwise. And we were asked, and I was laughing, Mandy, when you were talking about the studies after study after study. The Board of Supervisors gets a presentation by staff about the wind energy and about the fact that this area would be, has been designated as a potential for the industry to move in on. And but of course, government doesn't do anything without a study, right? So we all voted. I voted too. We need to hire a consultant and do a study, several studies actually. That's good. That's how we get our information, right? Some professional goes out and is supposed to bring us all the information. So we voted for a study. But when you do that, it just sort of takes off on its own as support almost. And so then, and that's what you were alluding to, and I'm just backing you up. That is true. That's the first stepping stone. And then what happens after, or maybe that was you, Andrea, talking about, at the port, the study after study. And what happens at the county level too is, so then you do a study, and often you get a grant to do the study. And then maybe whatever the next step is, they'll give you a grant or not. But then if the electeds at that point, for me, it was like, well, I want the information. So if you're going to go study it and bring us back information, I'm in. Well, it's not always that way. It's a pretty slippery slope. Oh, well, we got a grant. And if you don't let us go further into the next leg of this, we're going to have to give the money back. Supervisor Arnold, are you willing to give $5 million back? We can't afford to give $5 million back. And away the whole thing goes. It just takes off and goes. So that is, they have you in a little pickle, and I'm sharing this with you because as you go to these meetings and say no, and then they look at you like, well, aren't you obstinate? You won't even let us talk about it. But the first step, I mean, as soon as you enter in, it feels like it's just a runaway train after that. So just keep that in mind, and maybe put limits on the study, or say ask specific questions and say after these are answered, I'll vote on a study. But after we voted on the study, it was everything I was reading was the county that San Luis, it still talks about this, and San Luis County is all in on the wind energy off of our coastline. Anyway, by the time a year or so had passed by and that light bulb had come on, where I was kind of recognizing like, this looks dangerously a lot like what happened to Cresa. I got a call from an old friend, Connie Conway, who had taken Devin Nunes's place in Congress for 1 year. So she was representing over in the Valley, but I had known her from her days as an assemblywoman in Sacramento. And she called and said, Debbie, there's going to be the congressional hearing. Many of you were there. It was, what was it? I wrote it down. It was here in Morro Bay on September 8th, 2022. And it was just like the congressional hearings we watch on TV, only it was a mobile congressional hearing. So it was set up in Morro Bay. And the House committee, and you guys, it's all on YouTube too. The name of the congressional hearing that happened in September of 22 is called Power in the Pacific, Unlocking Offshore Wind Energy for the American West. And when you YouTube it, you can see the whole thing. But those congressional hearings, it had a lot of representation by industry. They spoke. It appeared to me that the administration was trying to fast track the leases, and this was the part of something that had to be done before that could happen. It was done really quickly, and so Connie asked me to come. She was sitting on that committee, and you're supposed to present both sides of an issue and both parties and all that, and make it look very neutral, so that when the congressional members ask you questions, it's not a foregone conclusion there. But Jeremiah and I sat together at that hearing, and I actually, that's how I know it's on YouTube. I pulled it up and kind of watched the rerun again. I'd never seen it. I just was having to go by memory, and I wanted to catch back up on it. But Jeremiah was speaking for the fishermen, and just very politely, as you always are, Jeremiah, he was just talking about the concerns that they had. Back then, it was pretty much the concerns. And me, by that time, I was the same thing as my water situation. I was making enemies out of my friends, out of some of my friends that were going full steam ahead with, loving this wind energy. But I was saying it was the industrialization of the coastline that added to I was thinking, am I in a bad dream? Because all the years I've lived in this county, people on the coast would have loaded their guns over protecting their coastline, right? Especially, and the beautiful coastline. And now we're just going to, don't mind anything. We're going to industrialize it, but it's all going to be good. I'm thinking, no way. I couldn't believe it was happening. And, or the proposals were happening. And so I brought that up. I brought up the fact that, that the fishermen, food source, grazing and farming, Crescent Plains, all the same thing. You shut it down, and then is this worth it, kind of a thing. But anyway, that was my first real stand up. I've made up my mind on this. This is not what it's being sold to us about, and of course it didn't matter because Jeremiah, I think there were 4 panels of industry that day, and we were on the same one. We were like the naysayers, and we were like the 4 of us. Okay, they gave us our few minutes, and then that was all, right? So that's how that went. And then, as you all know, the leases were given out, and thanks to you, I learned quickly, because our county staff wouldn't have told us that the lease winners were foreign countries. So yeah. So anyway, yes, I'm going to just take questions now so I can cover anything I might have missed. Mandy?
Two questions. One of them has to do with the validity of even trying to get information to the staff, because you guys do rely on staff. I know the CCC worked with them a lot, other agencies, but it was almost a foregone conclusion by the time we started making presentations to you guys that the direction the staff was pushing you guys in. Do you think it is even worth the effort once the dog and pony shows that already happened? You've already referenced that, decisions that already been made that were made not on enough information and basically made on a whole variety of lies, as far as I'm concerned. So question number 1 is at that point in time, is it even worth trying to go to staff to try to change the information that they may be giving the board? Second question is this: given that, and given the fact that the dog and pony shows have been happening, we were very aware of it. I went to that Pacific Council, that one in Sacramento that Nicole was referencing, and it was a mind-blowing experience. Literally, I walked out of there crying. So what I want to know is, given what the staff is predisposed to doing or not doing, and given the information that the board has, or any commissioner, any board has gotten, what we have tried to do is focus on, we go to these meetings knowing that we're probably not gonna change the minds of the Board of Supervisors as a whole. What we do is we go because it is televised, because we are getting information out to the public, and we are circumventing what the wind companies have done and have done for years by getting information out that is basically contrary to what they told everybody. Do you think that that strategy of showing up at these meetings, knowing that they're televised, et cetera, knowing that there are key people that are going to be going to them, do you think that's a good strategy to continue to do to get people to understand what's going on and to get more public response?
I think it's a necessary thing. You're getting things on the record too.
Right.
And it's necessary, if you weren't there, that Board of Supervisors, even if their mind's made up, which I'm saying often it is, even if their mind's made up, if there was no opposition, they think it was a cakewalk. And even if they knew that you were out here in Morro Bay still, agitated, they go, well, you weren't coming to our meetings. How did we know when we voted all this in? So it's an important step to be at the board meetings. I don't know how many of the just general public, of all those busy people we were talking about, pay attention, but I think it just has to be I'll tell you, we had I'm just likening it to the other things that I've done. We had a political miracle with the groundwater basin early on, and there was a state bill that was going to kind of hand off the control of the groundwater up there in Paso to the water pirates, outside investors, and we stopped it. And that's a whole story, but we were able to stop it, and we used the radio. Lots of people were always at the board meetings. But when you're asking me, Mandy, what about, I'm drawing on my experience with other things, like in this case, the water. That one, on the water issue, the staff knew, I think they knew, many of them, that there were huge issues with handing off our groundwater to the same people that were over pumping it, that kind of thing. But we have to remember, they work for the majority of the Board of Supervisors. But what was interesting to me in that one is even when we were the majority, the staff was so against, they were so in the pocket. And I have to think that the same thing's happening, that there was no changing it. I was always fighting with the staff to the point I'd have to go get the CAO and say, I can't get public works to listen. And we voted to do this. And they dragged their feet and not engage, and even the things we voted on just weren't happening. Well, we're all sick this month or year, we can't get the work done. It's excuse. So you have to watch out for that. But if the staff is being led or made up their mind, or even they wait you out as an elected, she'll be gone someday and we'll just do what we want to do and just slow it down. So again, if you're being I'm just saying that I had to get out. This was out of my comfort zone, but I'm just saying, and these are the ways I would talk on the board. And some of you have heard me. I would just say, and if I were you, I would just say that. Say what you really think and say it like that. Like, how could you claim that you're representing the people that live on this coast, that love this county, when you're just about to put these energy projects that are owned by foreign companies and industrialize our beautiful coastline? We don't want that. I mean, say it like that, and just say it over and over, and hopefully there's twinging in their conscience at some point, hopefully, right? But little after little, you just have to build that up. How can you say you're representing the people of the North County when you're giving away control of their groundwater to some foreign agency? That kind of stuff, and make them think about that. Who do you work for? We're on to you. We know what you're doing. We're going to expose you. Even if you win, we're going to expose you as being bad. Whoever wants to go next, yeah.
When you say that they're in their they have them in their pocket, I just got elected to be on a little board for the Morro Bay, and I had to take an ethics
Oh,
course. And I'm thinking, well, I can't even talk to two people, let alone, I mean, go out to dinner with somebody. So how are people in?
those ethics courses, there's two things. And if you're elected, there's sexual harassment training and there's ethics training, right? Do the right thing or don't. The sexual harassment, you know what that means. They passed bills in Sacramento, and where I work for Sam, the taxpayers would pay for all of us staffers to come from the district and spend the night in Sacramento, where we sit in a big theater and have to take the test and listen for these few hours of classes. And then later, those things were offered online. So even up until just before I retired, every 2 years you have to do this, and everybody that's elected knows this. And I'd sit in my office at the county and for like 4 hours between the two, right? And the computer won't let you.
Oh, 4 hours.
Two hour one.
4 hours.
But I'd be taking the ethics and then also the sexual harassment. And most of you know what went on that floor at that county. With the sexual harassment, we had 2 supervisors having affairs in their office while I'm sitting in that side of the wall watching how you're not supposed to touch someone at the coffee machine. So yes, that stuff is supposed to work, but I don't think it does.
So how are people in your pockets? I mean, how?
Oh, I just think, and I'm not even saying that.
When you make that comment that they're in their pocket.
I'm not even saying everyone. I do believe that there are.
The staff is in the pocket of
No, I think oftentimes the staff likes their job and they're not going to, they're not in a position. They're in a position to go study this. We want you to go do this. It might be their boss in their department, or it might be the electeds telling them that. But they're under pressure if they want to. Yeah. Andrea, you know all these things. You know how this works.
I'm probably going to say something that's probably unpopular, but I think we've really done a disservice. Not all electeds.
Yeah.
But I think we've done a disservice to the staff because I still listen to coastal commission meetings every week, and I listen to other boards, and what I hear from a lot of electeds, not all of them, you know, I work for Carla, I hear from Carla very often, but what I hear is, you know, a report happens from Public Works. This just happened the other day.
Yeah.
A report happens from Public Works. And, you know, John, what a great report. You've done such a good job. This is, and it's so over the top, and it happens, and it's really not coastal. It happens, everything that a staff person does is incredible. And I was a staff person, and, you know, I didn't get that.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think we've done this disservice to these staff people, and I almost feel like they're afraid to make any sort of decision that's not going to be popular or doesn't go along with what you want or what you want or what you want, because they love that praise. And I'm not sure how it happened, but I was in it for 35 years, and I see it just slowly creeping up, and now they can do no wrong. And staff can do wrong.
It's so funny you say that, because I think that certain people are trained to do that. And what does that gain you? That gains you kind of the friendship of whoever is the staff
And now
person.
I know what you want me to do, and even though I might think it's the wrong thing to do,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it because I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm jonesing for that praise.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know how we stop that, but I definitely have.
No, but I think if you call it out hard and not, because I think, like, I've been on your side of things on all different kinds of issues in my whole lifetime, right? Where you go in there and you're thinking, well, if I speak harshly, that's not going to be the way to win these people over that I need to vote my way. But I feel like in some of these cases, especially the ones that are this far down the trail, you have to tell them, subtly you're saying, I'm onto you. You said you were going to get elected and work in our best interest. So this is not in our best interest. We are all telling you, we don't want this. We're onto you. So whatever you do, you're going to live with the rest of your life, kind of thing. And that it's the vinegar instead of the honey, maybe. But I feel like sometimes the honey doesn't work. Yeah. Yes.
You may remember me from speaking at the dais at the vote for the grant monies that came from Cambria, and with the help of RAC and sort of the spirit in galvanizing the city, the town of Cambria against this offshore wind project. I'd like to, if I could, you've spoken on a number of issues here, and if you have maybe 5 minutes or so after this, if I can speak to you one-on-one.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, I am interested in Cambria of all places too.
I'm also the treasurer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would think, I know that they're sensitive to to their place, right? And I do believe most people in Cambria love it and want to do everything. So why would they be not up in arms about this? I think because it's presented to the public as a good thing, a clean energy thing. You're doing the right thing by going along with our wind. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
One thing, thank you for your wonderful talk. The one thing that you brought up and alluded to that I would like expanded a little more and talked about that connects to what we're doing. And it's always been the thing that bothered me the most about developing offshore wind or anything in the ocean. And you talked about Carrizo Plains and a huge food source was lost. Well, the ocean is part of the commons. It belongs to all of us. It's for we the people. And it's not for a bunch of elected officials to come and carve it up and sell it off to the highest bidders. And then your kids and your kids and your grandkids may not be able to go and get in a boat and sink a line in the ocean and pull out a fish and have something to eat and feed other people. And that's a huge thing. They're taking control of our food supplies right and left. And I could go on about that for a long time, but there are other things too.
The problem's going to be that many electeds are going to say, oh no, but we're doing you a favor. We're going to provide you your children energy into the future that's clean. We're getting smarter though. We have access to more information. If that would have worked 30 years ago, because it'd be very difficult to go and for a layperson to go and argue any of this, but today we have access, and it's a different story. And that's why I just say, and it doesn't even matter. You know what? If it's supposed to be what you want. This is your community, and for them to take the decisions away from you, not okay.
Well,
yeah.
Know what? From what I read in science and nature, we know less about what's at the bottom of the ocean than we do in outer space.
Yeah, I would.
And we're giving away things we don't even know.
And maybe doing irreparable damage, maybe. Yes, Jeff.
Thanks, Debbie, and thank you for being here. Every time
It's my pleasure.
I learn something, so thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. You know a group is doing a good job, or someone is doing a good job when the opposition stops attacking the argument and starts attacking the person or the organization.
Yeah.
So what I saw happen first, and I support REACT, but I'm not deeply involved with it at all. I'm just watched from afar the great job that the organizers have done. And the narrative that I heard at the beginning was, they're taking oil money. And so they were trying to poison the well. Well, that was dispelled. Now, the narrative that I hear is, they just make up facts. So here's my question for you, Debbie. What would you recommend to the group when the group itself is being attacked in an ad hominem or poisoning the well form?
Yeah, that happened in, I'm drawing off my experience with the Paso Robles groundwater basin. What I'm going to call the water pirates were always claiming they were there to help. They were there to make it better. All this sounds familiar, right? And you have to just get together and think about your talking points, not a lot of them, but 2 or 3 of them, and just pound them, right? And make them simplistic and common sense. we, especially in a complex issue, I mean, this is as well, but, you know, with the water, people would be saying, but I just, you know, and when you have this PR wise, you know, Jeff, you run for office, to have Cal Poly, you've got to know that you've got to be smart enough to know the universities still have the reputation. In other words, you, a layperson or community member, you're going to tell the rest of the community that Cal Poly's wrong and you're right, and they're going to say, oh, that person's just a kook. So you have to start thinking about your taglines that make people think and help their common sense, you know, to engage. And just so for me, I mean, that's all the reason I was sharing my thoughts as an elected, when I was saying, okay, like it or not, we all of us ratepayers paid for Diablo, and we paid billions of dollars over the years to get it done, through the protests, through the studies, through everything. Point is, it's done, right? And there it is. And if you're worried about the nuclear waste operating or not operating, that's not going anywhere. So if you were whiteboarding the pros and the cons and what's the best, why do we have to get in our pockets and get billions more dollars out to decommission it and let it just sit there and house the nuclear waste, and go do something else that may be just as damaging if there are problems? The batteries catching on fire at Moss Landing right out of the box was that's something good for you all to have in your.
The experts said that was, oh, this is the way to go.
Yeah.
How dare
Yeah.
you go against this?
Yeah.
Us Neanderthals
Yeah.
going against
And
that.
it could be
Then
just
Moss
that,
Landing.
you know, that this intermittent energy requires battery storage, and battery storage is very unsafe at this point and hasn't been, you know, maybe later we'll figure out a better way. But all those things, the hazardous waste, you know, the Cresa Plains, the solar farms out there, maybe, you know, maybe it'll go a different direction. But those were only supposed to last, their shelf life was only 25 years. We're coming up on 25 years. Those are all hazardous, toxic waste with nowhere to dispose. So what happens? That's the thing. I think they're investment opportunities, and I think it's like a hurry up and get them in, and we'll deal with the rest of it later oftentimes. But whatever you're doing, it's make your, and you guys are very proud of what you're doing, but make your lines to the public that you're trying to engage just a couple of simple, like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I'm against, you know, whatever the, yeah. I see everybody's hands up. I appreciate all these questions, but
Debbie, thank you for everything but you're sharing, and I agree that we need to continue doing what we're doing. But my personal experience going up against board of supervisors,
yeah,
we get up there for our 3 minutes,
yeah.
and then it's like next.
To some,
To
because
some,
you
to
can
some.
tell the ones that have their mind made up.
Right.
Like they're losing patience because they already have their mind made up, so they're just like, okay, I just have to listen. But
And we need to continue doing that. But I was thinking of the bigger question when you were talking about congressional hearings. Okay, back in 2010, there was a series of Supreme Court rulings that passed, and one of them is the famous Citizens United, where corporations became people. So now we have corporations who have endless supplies of donations to give to our elected officials, and here we are going up with our little, sign saying we don't want this. And the other side of the coin is too, I don't remember as a Californian, statewide or even a local, voting for offshore wind or even asking our opinion if we wanted it. And so the bigger issue is, I guess, when do we